We're here talking about the power of God, the supernatural manifestation of God's presence. So many times in our culture, we hear people talking about God, but there's not a connection or an encounter, Pastor, with God. That's not how He wants it to be.
No, it's all about us being drawn closer to Him so that we can have that divine encounter with Him. Yeah. That's what He wants. He wants intimacy. So He's always trying to use everything in our lives to just get us closer to Him.
Do you think that we get too focused on the signs sometimes, that we're looking for something?
We can. You know, I love Hebrews 12:2. It says, looking unto Jesus. Mm-hmm. We've got to keep our eyes on Him, absolutely, the author, the finisher of our faith.
That's right.
But even in saying that, Norma, there are gifts to the church that are supernatural manifestations of God's presence.
That's true.
It's not like He doesn't want us to experience Him. He wants us to hear His voice. He wants us, the Bible says, my sheep hear my voice. Know my
Amen.
voice. And Arlene, right, it's the working of the Spirit to speak to us, the heart and mind of the Father.
But I think you can also get out of balance in that and be seeking the signs and be seeking all of that rather than seeking Him. Because when you seek Him, all that comes about in balance into your life. He reveals Himself, you know, as long as we keep Him first and foremost. If you seek the sign, what's the Bible say? A wicked in generation seeks for a sign all the time. So we can't be seeking for signs.
Well, and the Word also tells, Paul was warning to I think to Timothy, that in the end days that the devil will manifest with signs and wonders, false signs and wonders. Now you walk in this office of a prophet and speak from the Lord. I know you do it sometimes in a reluctant way, but when you do that, how do you get that inclination that it's time for you to step up and speak up?
Well, the way that my relationship with God is kind of like, He'll kind of nudge me, and then he'll kind of poke me, and then I'll just kind of wait because I don't jump out at it. And that's probably because early on I have a gift, so I don't make it my identity, because I kind of went through an identity thing at one time. So I don't feel pressured to step out and do it because I don't have to prove who I am.
That's right.
I am who I am, and it's God's. And I really don't want to take ownership of what God has given me either, because it's His, so there's really no limit to that. So I just kind of take my time and kind of move along that way. But then as time has gone on, I kind of had I guess one time in prayer, I was like, Lord, just take care of my family, and I'll do whatever you want me to do. And you got to be careful when you say that. So I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so literally my choice of free will is kind of gone, because God will poke me, He'll nudge me, and the more that I don't, the more like my stomach will start turning, I'll start to feel sick. So literally it's kind of like He's really pushing me, and that's how I know I really have to do it. So
you have a testimony or share a story of when you spoke. Now we're Steeler fans here. You know, you have to, when you come into the city, you have to sign a creed and a pact that you will be only wear gold and black and be Steeler fans. But you had an encounter with God to speak to another team's player, and that turned into quite a deal. Tell us the testimony of how that happened.
I was working at a fashion company, and we were making all of the ladies' suits, all the stars, and the Lord kind of told me it was time to leave, so I quit my job. And as I quit my job, I didn't really know what to do because I didn't have another job. So that was an act of faith that I just kind of stepped out. And then God led me to a financial planner that I had met. So I started to work with him, and he was a financial planner for some sports figures. So one day we're in the office, he's like, hey, let's go to this guy's house. So we went to this guy's house, and he goes, this is David Tyree. And I'm a Jet fan. So I met David, and he was playing for the Giants, and he was actually injured. And I go, well, I'm a Jet fan. And he said, well, I'm sorry, kind of joke there. So we go there, and literally that was most of my conversation with him that day. So then we came back to the office, and as I'm back at the office, the Lord kind of had me start praying for this guy. And I didn't know who he was, and it wasn't like he was a famous person. He was just a special teams guy at that time. So, and he wasn't even playing because he was injured. So then the Lord kind of ministered to me about praying for the man. So I'm praying for, he gets healed, he gets back on the field, stuff. And then the Lord one day told me, you need to talk to him. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody, And then the Lord was really on me to the point where I started to get sick. So I grabbed the number off the Rolodex, which, being in a professional capacity, you got to be careful not to go over the line.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, and then I took the number and the Lord was really on me. So I said, I know I need to do this, but how? Because, what if my boss finds out or something like that? There's all kinds of repercussions. So I took the chicken way out. I said, okay, well, I'll call on a Friday. Because if I call on a Friday, I have a couple of days to kind of figure it out. So Friday comes and, I call later in the evening. I got home from work and it's probably like 9:15. I told my wife, I got to go in the basement. I got to make a phone call. I didn't tell her who it was or anything. So I go downstairs, I call on the phone, and, all these thoughts are going through your mind. Is this really God? Because this was kind of many years ago. So I'm kind of like, Lord, is this really you? So then the phone rings, and it rings. Meanwhile, your heart is pounding like crazy. And I'm like, well, maybe he won't answer it. You kind of try to figure out there's a way out. So then on the third ring, he goes, hello, this is David. And I went, hi. He goes, hello. And I went, this is Hubie. He goes, who? I go, Hubie, the accountant guy. He goes, yeah. How you doing, man? I said, I'm doing okay. Look, sorry I didn't to call you so late at night, but I really, the Lord's been on me to kind of talk to you. Now, I knew nothing about his walk or anything. So out comes this word. Now, I'm on my basement, in the basement, on the phone, and out comes this word, and it's a really long one. And then all of a sudden, there's this silence when I'm done. And I'm like, well, David, you there? He's like, yeah, man. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, no, this is not good. There's the pause. He goes, yeah, I just don't know what to say. And I was like, oh, here it comes. This is bad. And he goes, a lot of the stuff that my wife and I were praying for last night, you gave us answers.
Jesus.
And I was like, wow. And he goes, and you said some pretty strong stuff there about, me and my wife and my family. He goes, I really want to share the gospel of what God has done for me, but I don't have a platform. And and I also have a dream of being known as a wide receiver like I was in college, but in the pros, I'm known as special teams guy. And he goes, and you said that, I would be known as a wide receiver and God would give me a platform. And, and he was injured at the time. This was October. So he got on the field and he had the worst season of his life. He hardly caught the ball. And even, as they made their run through the playoffs, the day before the Super Bowl, he had the worst practice ever. He dropped every single ball that was thrown at him in practice.
Oh, wow.
So then he said that he just held on to what I said, and God sent some other people to kind of reaffirm it. His mother had passed. It was just a horrible time for him. And, and during the Super Bowl, he scored a touchdown, and we're watching it, and we're kind of like, no, that's not really it. So, and then the fourth quarter came, and he made that spectacular catch, which if you look at it, there's no physical way he could have ever caught that. But God did that, and, it was a miraculous thing that his marketing agent at the time was watching from a hotel room. He fell on his knees and gave his life to Christ just because of the catch. Because he knew it was a divine thing. It was a divine thing.
Hallelujah.
So the marketing manager got saved watching Tyree catch that ball.
Because he knew kind of what the situation was, and he knew there was no way that could have ever happened. I mean, you just look at it, there's really no physical way that he should have been able to hold on to it.
Did you talk to him afterwards?
Yeah, he called me the next morning, and he was literally weeping.
Sure.
And he was very humble, and he said, I'm not going to take any credit for it. And can you believe what God did? I wanted a platform. And at the time, that was the highest rated Super Bowl ever. And everybody remembers the catch. It's still, even now.
Yes. Sure.
And it gave him the platform he really wanted to share the gospel. And he was just like, we could have never guessed this is really what it was. So when you looked at the word, it fit, but you could have never guessed that's really what it was.
Couldn't have put the pieces together in advance.
Right, and now everybody recognizes him, So,
Wow.
whereas
As
before,
a wide receiver.
yeah, and before he could walk down the street, nobody knew who he was. So it totally
God,
changed
huh?
his life.
Look at God.
Pastor, that's how God is. Isn't it cool how he put the pieces together for this brother's life? And then it came to that moment, and
It was a suddenly.
that's one of the suddenlies.
Yeah.
He has perfect time for everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But he gave him a hint. He told him in advance. So that's what I love.
And the miracle to me was that he was injured. The fact that he
Yeah.
recovered, he got back to playing. And of course the catch too, but at the time when God told him, it was kind of a very low point. He wasn't even on the field. So
And his season wasn't good. It
Not
wasn't
good at
like it
all.
was like a getting better, and then wow,
Yeah,
it
no,
was
no.
bad,
Yeah.
and then wow.
Yeah.
There's a lesson in life there.
Wow.
There's a lesson that we hear from God, we receive that instruction or that encouragement or that edification, but then things seem to get worse. Many times that's the case.
That's exactly right.
Many times it's the case. Many times when you give, your finances get challenged. Right?
This is a test.
Absolutely.
yeah, it's the test. Exactly, it's the test. Do you really believe? So then, personally, what I do is I give more.
You just got to go in it.
I just kind of say, okay, well, I'm in this already. Let me give more. It
Absolutely.
hurt. Now it's really hurting. And, like sometimes when we get a bill, like one time my air conditioner, the whole unit went out. The guy was like $5,000. I'm like, I'm going to pay $5,000. I was at a church. I called the youth pastor in. I opened up my wallet. I go, I got $100. I'm giving it to you. He goes, why are you giving it to me for? I said, because I have no idea how I'm going to pay for this, but I have enough faith that I'm not going to do what I'm trained to do. I'm going to do the opposite.
That's right, absolutely.
And then I called up the company and they go, we don't do financing. And I was like, okay, well, now what we're going to do? And then a week later, they called me and said, we're going to finance you.
See.
Oh, see, that's how God is. Thank you for coming and sharing.
Yeah.
And guys, that's the word of the testimony.
Yeah,
The power in the testimony of God's faithfulness.
that's God all the way.
God all the way.
All the way. That's
Praise
God
the Lord.
all the way.
Catch the ball on the back of your helmet with your with your left hand.
Exactly.
There's what God does.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Lord.